Before we start, let us pray. Can someone lead a prayer? Go ahead. Good morning, class. Please take your seat. Say present if your name is called. Okay, before we start our lesson for today, let's first watch a short video clip and observe the video because later on I will be asking questions or question from you. Are you ready? Okay. So, what have you noticed or observed in the video? All of you have a point, but do you have any idea what is the connection of it for our lesson for today? Very good. Our lesson for today is about communicative competence. Now that you have the idea what I will discuss for today, do you have any thoughts in your mind what is it all about or what is communicative competence? I guess none. So, communicative competence is the ability to understand and use a language effectively to communicate for a wide range of contexts and for a variety of purposes. So, it encompasses a language user's grammatical knowledge of syntax, morphology, phonology, and the like, as well as the knowledge when and how to use utterances appropriately. Communicative competence is just simply knowing how, when, and where to say it. But in order for us to be a competent speaker or communicator, there are 4 aspects or competence areas we should meet to assure fluency. Do you have any idea what are those? I guess none. So, the 4 aspects are linguistic competence, sociolinguistic, strategic, and discourse competence. First, linguistic competence. So, linguistic competence is knowing how to use grammar, syntax, and vocabulary of a language. Linguistic competence is just simply knowing what words will you use and how will you put them into phrases or sentences. So the second one is sociolinguistic competence. It is knowing how to use and respond to a language appropriately given the setting, the topic, and the relationships among the people communicating. In here, it's just knowing which words and phrases fits this setting and this topic. How can I express a specific attitude like courtesy, authority, and respect when I need or when we need to? Sociolinguistic competence is a knowledge of a person in applying the language in adherence to the cultural norms or to the norms of the society, including the culture. It refers to the ability to select topics that are appropriate for a communicative event. For example, expressing strong views about religion and politics is generally avoided. Why? Because we know that we are diverse when it comes on personal views or opinions, especially about these two. This politics and religion. So, it's avoided because it can cause miscommunication. Before we proceed to the third one, or to the third aspect, can someone give me a situation that depicts about sociolinguistic competence. Very good. So, let's move on to the third aspect rather, the discourse competence. Discourse competence is knowing how to interpret the larger context and to construct longer stretches of language so that the parts make a coherent whole. So, discourse competence refers to the familiarity of genres such as conversations, interviews, and reports. In other words, a discoursely competent speaker or writer is able to arrange words, phrases, or even sentences to structure a text that is appropriate for a particular genre. So, in discourse competence, it's just the familiarity with genres, because in conversations with our friends is different from interviews and reports. Interviews and reports are more formal than conversation with friends. We use more appropriate words when there is interview or a report. In conversation with friends naman, mas informal. We use words that you and your friend can only easily understand than interviews and reports. So let's now move on to the fourth or to the last aspect of communicative competence, the strategic competence. Strategic competence is knowing how to recognize and repair communication breakdowns, how to work around gaps in one's knowledge of the language. In here, it only asks, how do we know when we've misunderstood someone? Or strategic competence, from the word itself, is strategy. It is the ability of a person to manage circumstances along the communication process. It is also the ability of a person to strategize. As what I've said a while ago, from the word itself, strategic or strategy. It is the ability of a person to strategize in the communication process to deal with the factors that blunders the continuous and successful process of communication. Here, what situation can you give? Your answers are all correct, but to further assess your learnings, I will give an activity which will test your analyzation skills. I'll give situations and you're going to tell if it's linguistic, sociolinguistic, and so forth. Write your answers in a one whole sheet of paper. Understood? You may start. Okay, time is up. Exchange your papers with your seatmates. I'm going to dictate the correct answers and you're going to check your seatmates' paper. So, number 1, linguistic competence. Number 2, sociolinguistic. Number 3, discourse. Number 4, linguistic. Number 5 is strategic. Who got the highest score? Who got 5? Alright, all of you got 5. Now, can someone justify how being a competent speaker or communicator plays a vital role in life or in our human life? Yes, go ahead. Okay, that's right. By being a competent speaker, we are not just able to understand and use a language effectively, but also it will lead us to avoid miscommunication. Can someone summarize what we've discussed for today before we end our session or our class for today? Sure, we are glad to hear that. Very well said. Now, I'm rest assured that you've gained new learnings for today's meeting. Goodbye, class. See you next week.